3 goats, 1 HOA dictator, 0 apologies, as Mabel, Clovis, and Sir Chuzelot happily chomped through the manicured azaleas. Outside Karen Whitaker's flawless suburban lawn, she shrieked from her deck like a banshee spotting a smudge on her crystal. They're devouring my award-winning topiary. That's imported, Nathan. I leaned on my shovel, smirked, and said, "Relax, Karen. They're eco-certified, HOA-approved, and frankly, doing you a favor." I'm Nathan Holt, 40, freelance illustrator, part-time recluse, and proud wrangler of 3 therapy goats who double as nature's finest landscapers. I moved to Willow Creek Estates dreaming of a quiet life, maybe some rosemary in the backyard. My goats, emotional support superstars and grass-trimming legends. They keep my nerves steady and my lawn pristine. But Karen Whitaker, HOA president, garden guru, and self-appointed lawn czar in khaki cullets, had other plans. Her twin passions, perfectly uniform turf and crushing anything that dared disrupt it. Her lawn was a masterpiece. Think Augusta. National meets Versailles, with sprinklers timed to the nanosecond. So when she caught my goats nibbling her prized clover, she reached for her HOA rulebook like a samurai unsheathing a katana. What followed was a suburban saga of goats, grudges, and green revenge. I never planned to start a revolution. When I moved to Willow Creek, I just wanted peace, quiet, and a patch of dirt to call my own. I'm not exactly a social butterfly. My idea of a wild night is sketching logos with a glass of iced tea. My goats, though, they're my lifeline. Mabel, with her soulful eyes, calms my racing thoughts. Clovis, the curious one, keeps me grounded, and Sir Chuzelot, the showboat, struts like he owns the cul-de-sac. They're registered emotional support animals, but they've got a side hustle, mounting my lawn with surgical precision. No gas, no noise, just happy chomping. The neighbors love them. Kids would sneak carrots through the fence, and old Mr. Callahan would tip his hat and say, "Better than my old John Deere." But Karen Whitaker, she saw my goats as a personal affront to her suburban utopia. Karen was a force of nature, and not the good kind. She ran the HOA like a military outpost, her clipboard her weapon of choice. She once fined a guy $100 because his mailbox was half an inch too tall. Her own yard was a shrine to suburban perfection, emerald grass, sculpted, shrubs, and a fountain that probably cost more than my car. She patrolled the neighborhood in her golf cart, measuring grass heights with a ruler and issuing citations for infractions, like excessive dandelion presence or unapproved rose varietals. When she spotted my goats lounging in my yard, nibbling stray weeds, her eyes narrowed like a hawk spotting prey. The citations started pouring in faster than junk mail. Unauthorized livestock, vegetation disruption, potential hoof-related property devaluation. I pointed out that my goats stayed in my fenced yard, made less noise than her industrial-grade hedge trimmer, and were technically therapy animals. Karen didn't care. She was on a mission. Her first move was animal control. The officer, a guy named Mike with a mustache that screamed, "I've seen it all," took one look at Sir Chuzelot, who was posing like a runway model, and burst out laughing. "These goats are better behaved than my dog," he said, snapping a selfie with Clovis. The second officer was less amused, muttering about a possum in a dumpster and telling Karen to call back when my goats started a riot. Undeterred, Karen went nuclear. Flyers appeared in mailboxes, warning of barnyard invasions and imminent property value collapse. Someone taped a farm life not welcome sign to my garage. Kids stopped coming by, and I found a sack of oats on my porch with a note, "Take yours to elsewhere. Farmer Nathan." I sipped my coffee, watched Mabel bleed happily, and wondered if Karen had ever heard of decaf. Her campaign escalated into performance art. Karen bought a telephoto lens and started staking out my yard like a wildlife photographer on safari. She crouched behind her hydrangeas, snapping photos of Clovis eating clover, then logged them in a spiral notebook labeled "Goat Violations." She measured their droppings with a ruler, sent soil samples to the county for pathogen analysis, and even tried to get the fire department involved, claiming my goats were a flammable hazard during fire season. When that flopped, she called the Postal Service, insisting my goats were intimidating mail carriers by grazing within 20 feet of my mailbox. I invited the mailman, Dave, for coffee. He laughed, said Mabel was his favorite part of the route, and gave her a pat. The whole meetings became my personal sitcom. Karen would sweep in with binders of goat photos, printouts of obscure zoning laws, and PowerPoint slides titled "The Horned Threat to Willow Creek." She paced the podium, waving her laser pointer like a conductor, ranting about how my goats were eroding the aesthetic foundation of our community. She mispronounced caprini as cappuccino, and once claimed my goats were lowering SAT scores by stressing out the neighborhood kids. Meanwhile, the neighbors were warming to my herd. Mrs. Lopez brought zucchini scraps for Clovis. The Thompson kids drew chalk portraits of Sir Chuzelot on my driveway. Even Mr. Callahan, who hadn't smiled since the Nixon administration, admitted the goats were less annoying than Karen's leaf blower. At 7 a.m. Karen wasn't done. She hired a private investigator to tail me to the feed store, probably hoping to catch me buying contraband hay. She sent certified letters to my vet demanding proof of goat sanity. She even tracked down my sister in Oregon, leaving voicemails about how my unhealthy animal fixation was a cry for help. I ignored it, sketching logos while Sir Chuzelot napped in the sun, but Karen's peace de resistance was the community safety forum. She rented the clubhouse, ordered trays of soggy sandwiches, and invited every homeowner to discuss the rural menace in our midst. 15 people showed up, mostly for the free food. Karen unveiled a 50-slide presentation, complete with graphs of goat-related property value decline and a timeline of my agricultural insurgency. She calculated the cost of potential hoof injuries and warned of barnyard pathogens threatening public health. I sat in the back, sipping soda, trying not to laugh when she demonstrated aggressive goat behavior by bleating and headbutting the air. Mrs. Lopez whispered, "She needs a hobby." Mr. Callahan muttered, "Or a therapist." The room was restless. Checking watches and eyeing the exit dock, Karen pushed harder. She announced the Suburban Purity Alliance and passed around a petition to ban livestock and a restore order. For people signed it, including her cousin from out of town. The meeting ended with Karen shouting about pastoral anarchy while my goats grazed peacefully, blissfully unaware they'd been labeled public enemy number 1. Then, fate handed me an opening. Karen's landscaping crew quit after she demanded they trim her lawn with nail scissors to achieve optimal blade symmetry. The foreman told her to shove her ruler and stormed off. Around the same time, the HOA launched an eco-friendly initiative to cut down on gas-powered tools, spurred by a local newspaper editorial blasting suburban environmental waste. The stars aligned, and I saw my chance. I spent a week crafting a proposal that would make a Sierra Club member weep. I dove into environmental jargon, carbon footprints, native plant restoration, sustainable grazing, and wrote a 15-page manifesto. Under the guise of an anonymous concerned citizen, I pitched my goats as heritage breed bioengineers for low-impact turf management and invasive species control. I threw in fake case studies from non-existent neighborhoods, complete with stats about 70% cost reductions and enhanced soil microbial diversity. I waxed poetic about noise reduction, biodiversity, and community wellness through natural landscaping. It was a masterpiece of greenwashed nonsense, and I knew Karen would eat it up. At the next HOA meeting, Karen presented my proposal as her own stroke of genius. She raved about revolutionary eco-solutions and convinced the board to fund a 6-month trial. The newsletter went out. Willow Creek pioneers green landscaping. I framed it next to a photo of Clovis wearing a tiny straw hat. Days later, I marched my goats to Karen's driveway like environmental superheroes. They went to work, munching her invasive ivy, trimming her fescue, and leaving eco-friendly droppings in their wake. Neighbors clapped. A kid braided daisies into Mabel's collar. The whole board marveled at the silent, sustainable workforce. Karen stepped outside mid-chomp, her face paling as she realized she'd been played. "You," she screeched, clutching her sun hat. I waved my clipboard. "Per your contract, ma'am. File a termination request with the board if you're unhappy." I showed her the newsletter with her own glowing endorsement of biological lawn solutions, complete with her signature. Her jaw dropped, and her face cycled through shades of red and purple. Karen tried everything to undo it. She called the EPA, claiming my goats were a biohazard. She contacted the zoning board, alleging I was running a clandestine farm. She even pitched a local TV station on a story about suburban sabotage. While livestock, the news crew arrived, saw my goats delicately pruning hedges, and turned it into a fluff piece about innovative eco-landscaping. A reporter interviewed Mrs. Lopez, who called the goats a gift to the planet. Karen watched from her porch, slamming her door as Clovis nibbled her prized lavender. The whole expanded the program. Using my goats on other properties, they were officially dubbed organic lawn specialists. With a waiting list, Mr. Callahan requested Mabel for his weed-choked backyard. The board reported a 50% drop in maintenance costs and got a write-up in the local paper. For forward-thinking sustainability, Karen's desperation hit fever pitch. She left voicemails with the health department about goat-related sanitation risks. She tried to convince the sheriff my goats were intimidating pedestrians. She even filed for a restraining order, which the judge, a self-professed urban farming enthusiast, tossed out, advising her to embrace the future. The final blow came when the county awarded our HOA a $6,000 grant for pioneering livestock-based landscaping. Karen had to present the award at a ceremony. Standing beside a banner of Sir Chuzelot eating dandelions, the county also fined her $0 for abusing municipal resources. With her endless complaints, she gripped the plaque, her smile tighter than a drum, while cameras clicked and my goats grazed in the background. The undisputed kings of Willow Creek, conclusion Tade, my goats are neighborhood celebrities. Kids draw fan art of Clovis. The HOA's newsletter features Sir Chuzelot monthly, often in goofy hats. Karen, she's toned down her lawn obsession. Though I catch her glaring when Mabel trims her roses, my goats prove that sometimes the best way to win a war is with a well-placed proposal and a herd of hungry heroes. 3 goats, 1 HOA tyrant, 0 regrets.